Breastfeeding and back to work? What should I know? Hi, I'm Dr. Francesca Haydanik, aka Paging Dr. Fran. I'm an OBGYN and mom to 3 young children. I went back to work about 6 weeks postpartum after I had my first child. I was a brand new third-year OBGYN resident, working a lot of hours. I was working probably 70 to 80 hours at that time. I felt a really strong need to really provide for my daughter while I was away working. So I really took a lot of work to pump for my daughter. I was an exact producer, so I had to pump about 5 times a day, and I chose to get a portable pump to wear because when you're an OBGYN, you can't be attached to a wall in case something happens. So I had portable pumps. I was wearing my portable pump when I was told that I was not allowed to pump in clinical areas. I felt really vulnerable when I received that guidance to not pump in clinical areas because I think when you're pumping, you're making yourself vulnerable. You're going through a body function that now everyone sees that you're doing. And so by having someone tell me I couldn't do the one thing that I was able to do for my daughter while at work felt really disappointing and vulnerable. I was lucky that I had a lot of supportive people in my life, including my program director, who, when I took my concerns about how this was discriminatory against me, helped me change the hospital policy. So with their help, we ended up changing our hospital policy that all clinical workers could pump in any clinical area wearing portable pumps. I took a little bit of time to really gather my evidence about what it means to be breastfeeding, what breast milk is, and what current CDC recommendations are. One of the arguments that the clinical nurse leader was making was that this was an unsanitary process, that I was harming my patients and my baby by pumping in a clinical area, and really saying that breast milk is a biohazard when in reality it is not. So I took my time to gather my resources, gather the information, gather the evidence, and present it to a group of people who could help me change the policy based on evidence and not based on feelings. I would tell my younger self that I'm really proud of her. She was going through something really difficult being a new mom while working an incredibly hard job. And to then have to talk about something that's so vulnerable while trying to change major corporate policy is a big step to take when you're already in a vulnerable position. Looking at myself now, I know how hard that was to have to do that for myself, but also I'm so proud that I did that for other people, because since then, people have come to me and said, I couldn't have changed the policy. I didn't have the knowledge or the support to do that. By you changing the policy, you changed my life. And so I'm so proud of myself for not only advocating for myself, but also the other future lactating workers in my own hospital. A lot of new moms are nervous about balancing breastfeeding while going back to work. Here's what you need to know. One of my biggest tips about when you're going back to work and breastfeeding is that you need to tell them what you need rather than asking permission. What I mean by this is that you really need to know your own pumping schedule. Some people need to pump every 2 hours, and some people need to pump every 4 to 5 hours, and you need to tell your work what you need, not what they can accommodate. Pumping is now protected by law, so understanding that your job needs to give you a non-bathroom space and the time to pump is your protected right by law. Does insurance cover breast pumps even if I'm not returning back to work? Breast pumps are required to be covered by insurance under the Affordable Care Act, including Momcozy pumps. Your OB can easily prescribe your pump through their own insurance company or other companies that do the work for you. What is a pumping plan? When you're working as a part of a team, it's important that your team is supportive of you, but you are working within the team, so it's helpful if you tell your team what you need ahead of time. For example, if you know that you're going to have to pump in 20 minutes, telling your team ahead of time that you're going to be pumping in 20 minutes and you'll be gone for about 30 gives them time to prepare. Many companies do have HR policies in place surrounding breastfeeding, so it's helpful if you familiarize yourself with those ahead of time and understand what your limitations may be at work, and maybe how those can be changed in the future. Most people are incredibly supportive of those who are breastfeeding, and I think talking about it helps normalize breastfeeding in the workplace. I think it's very normal and probably very common for new lactating workers to feel uncomfortable at work. The more you practice it and ask for the things that you need, the more comfortable you're going to feel with this process. What are some practical tips for making a pumping plan? Before you go on maternity leave, I do suggest that you figure out your own company's policy so you know what the rules are when you return. A couple weeks before you go back to work, I suggest that you get your pump supplies in order. This means figuring out which pumps you want, how your pumps work, and getting all your parts sterilized and ready to go. One of the things you'll want to figure out is where at work are you going to store your milk? Are you going to have a refrigerator at your disposal, or do you need to bring your own ice pack or cooler to store your milk in? A couple pieces of equipment that you may need are your pumps, the place that you're going to store your milk, either a glass container or in bags, and possibly wipes to clean your pumps in between use. Some women will choose to pump at their desk wearing a portable pump, but you don't have to. Momcozy has a lot of great options when it comes to these supplies. I know you may feel that you need to buy every piece of equipment as you return back to work, but I really advise that you take it one step at a time and find out what you need for your own unique work situation. A lactation consultant can also help you really narrow down exactly what you need for your own pumping situation. Where can someone find more information about the laws surrounding breastfeeding in the workplace? You can find more information here. What is the Pump for Nursing Mothers Act? This federal act protects breastfeeding for lactating workers, so that means that you are required to have reasonable break times from work, as well as a private non-bathroom space for breastfeeding up to 1 year of life for your baby. I'm hopeful that the more we normalize breastfeeding in the workplace, by the time my children are at that place, this is just normal. We're not fighting to have a non-bathroom space to breastfeed in. It's normalized. When people build buildings now, you put lactation rooms in places that make sense and don't send them across the whole building for a small little corner to do it in. The more we normalize these conversations around breastfeeding, pumping, providing for our children while working, or pumping because that's what works for you and your family at home, the more we normalize that, the more the world is going to change and have it just be a part of our lives rather than this new thing that we have to adjust to. It's just going to be our normal. When Momcozy reached out and said, hey, we'd love to work together, it was such a logical fit because what Momcozy is doing and what I feel I'm doing are so aligned. We're trying to create things and ideas and content and all the things that breastfeeding moms need when they're going back to work or pumping at home. I think there's not a lot of physicians who really feel passionate about lactation, and our view is a little different than, say, a lactation consultant. My role is a little bit different within the lactation journey of our patients and clients. And so I wanted to be able to bring the medical side to it, talking about the problems that pertain to medicine and lactation. And so to be able to be a voice at the table, to be someone who can give that input differently than a pediatrician can and differently than a lactation consultant can by bringing in the medical voice and the voice of someone who's been there as a pumping mom, it made me feel like I could help future lactating people by sharing my own experiences from both sides. Really, our ideals were so aligned, our goals were so aligned, and this was the easiest thing to say yes to because they're a company who supports breastfeeding moms, and that's all I'm asking for. Momcozy puts moms first.